Hi, in this video we're going to talk about the accents in Attic Greek. We're going to go over it fairly slowly. To be honest, this is something a lot of people have a lot of trouble with. It doesn't necessarily need to be hard though. So I'm going to try to do it in an organized way to make something that doesn't need to be hard, not hard. So moving on here, there are actually three types of accents in Attic Greek. We've got first, that's the one that goes up like this. So imagine you have an alpha here and just goes up. It's an acute accent. You have an alpha here, it goes down. That's a grave accent or grave accent. These will all go, by the way, on vowels. And say you have an accent here on this alpha, it's a circumflex accent. And it can look like that, or it can look sort of like this. That just depends on style. But we'll just do the circumflex the way I have it so far. Three types of accents. Really quickly, this let's do this one first here. This type of accent, the grave, can only go on the last syllable. So we have W, X, Y, and Z. These will represent syllables for us here. Grave can only go on the last syllable of a word. No matter what, you will never see a correctly accentuated Greek text with a grave, or in ancient Greek, in Attic Greek, with a grave on any syllable other than the last syllable. So that will make things pretty easy in case of grave accents. The only thing you have to know about a grave accent is it's what happens when an acute accent that would be on the last syllable is on the last syllable of a word where the next word is an accentuated word. So if the next word has an accent on it, there would be an acute accent here. You just change it to a grave. It's actually that simple. The next one I want to talk about here is the circumflex accent. This can only go on a long syllable, or on a syllable with a long vowel, I should say. And it can go on the second to last syllable or the last syllable. Those are the only two options: second to last syllable or the last syllable. So again, you will never see a correctly accentuated ancient Greek text, ancient Attic Greek text with a circumflex accent on any but the second to last and last syllables of a word. These W, X, Y, and Z representing syllables of word. And it will go on the vowel of that syllable. Just like I said down here, we have accent marks on the vowels. Whether it goes on the last or the second to the last will depend on some rules that we'll go over later. But just understand that point. The next point to be made is the acute accent can go on the third to last, second to last, or last syllable, but it can't go further back than the third to last syllable. As far as determining what sort of accent we will put on a word, there's a series of rules that you can go through. I'm just going to erase these down here. There's a series of rules that you can use to determine where it goes. Okay. So here's what happens. We'll come over here and we'll talk about morae first. Mora is a unit of a short vowel. So a short vowel has one mora and a long vowel will have two. Short vowel, one mora, long vowel have two. And we have, again, a word with 4 syllables, W, X, Y, and Z. And we talk about sorts of accents. We can throw out the grave accent, because remember, that's just what happens to an acute accent when the word it's on is followed by an accented word, a word with an accent mark on it, and the acute accent is on the last syllable. So we'll talk about the other two types. We're going to say, some textbooks will talk about persistent accent versus recessive accent. We're going to mask that, or we're not going to talk about that for now. We're just going to say, to start out with, that we assume the accent mark has a will of its own and it wants to go to this third to last syllable, right? And because it's the third to last syllable and the circumflex can't go back that far, it wants to be an acute accent. Now, it can't do that for a couple of reasons, right? In a couple of circumstances. If there aren't three syllables, it can't do that, obviously. But also, ancient Greek likes to have an accent go up, have one syllable of essentially rest, and then preferably one mora, or short vowel, at the very end. Okay, so regardless of the length of this, it likes to have one syllable of rest and then one mora, or short vowel unit, at the end. And so if it can do that, have an acute here, then go down, then have a syllable of rest, and then do one mora of short vowel, then it will. So essentially, if this is a short vowel, it's going to have an accent on this third to last syllable. If this is a long vowel, there will be two short vowel units here, and so it's not going to try to do it. It's going to go up here, and then have one syllable of rest, and just not worry about the more, not worry about the short vowel at the end. So you say, well, why does it like to go up and then down? It's because historically we think that this accent represented an increase of pitch. So the pitch would increase here, and then during the recovery syllable, the pitch would go back down to the normal level that it was at during speech, and then the one resting mora would be left over. So for whatever reason, the Greek language just like to have that one mora at the end. Now there are cases in which, either because there aren't enough syllables for it to go all the way back, or for some other reasons we'll talk about later on as we discuss grammar, you actually can't have it go back to the third to last syllable. And we only have a short vowel at the end here. If that's the case, and the second to last syllable is long, then we'll do a circumflex accent. Okay. Also, in some cases, we will have a circumflex accent on the last syllable, and we'll just consider the circumflex accent to be sort of part of the grammatical form. So you'll learn that there's a circumflex accent there with the grammatical form that's given. So it's not really an exception, but we'll consider that an exception. If you keep those rules in mind, that will explain a lot of ancient Greek accentuation. You remember I said something about persistent versus recessive accent. So recessive accent is what we've talked about so far. That's the word wants to have its accent on the third to last syllable. Persistent accent is really just the word wants to have the accent somewhere else. So in a dictionary form, the word might be accentuated, for example, on the second to last or the last syllable. You can think of persistent accent and recessive accent as being the same thing, just persistent or recessive accent is liking the third to last syllable, and it's a type of persistent accent where the word likes the third to last syllable. Generally, grammars will distinguish between the two, and they'll say that recessive accent is for verbs, where it goes back as far as it can towards the front of the word, and persistent accent is for nouns. It doesn't matter that you know that. The important thing is you should know different words based off of their dictionary entry like to have the accent in different places. So wherever you see it in the dictionary entry, that's where it's going to like to have its accent. But with verbs, that will always be on the third to last syllable. And it's convenient to talk about it that way because the dictionary form for verbs, they could have chosen a form with perhaps a short vowel at the end, but they didn't. They chose a form in Greek English dictionaries that has a long vowel at the end, so you would never see in the dictionary form the accent back on the third to last syllable. But you can just know if it's a verb, it likes the third to last syllable. If it's a noun, one of the dictionary forms will show you how far back it likes to go. So we'll do some practice with these, but keep in mind those rules. It shouldn't be too hard, and if you do a little bit of practice, you don't have to go very far through your Greek career not understanding accents, as some people unfortunately do.